mother and child are walking in the park together in the fall, and the child turns to her mother and says, "Mom, why do the leaves change color in the fall?" Mother stops and thinks about it for a second, and she says, "Well, there's this thing called chlorophyll. It's in every leaf, it's green, and it makes food for the plant. And when the winter comes, it doesn't need food, so the chlorophyll breaks down, and the breakdown products are orange and yellow and red, and that's why the leaves change color." The girl stops, ponders this, and says, "That's not what Grandma says." "Really? What does Grandma say?" "She says that God paints them, one at a time." The convergence of science and spirituality is based on physics, and the new physics is the physics of the smallest parts, the physics of the quantum. The quantum idea leads us clearly to the conclusion that there is no such thing as separation between physical objects, that all times are included together, and that people are not separate neither from each other nor from the elements of their environment. In fact, we are all one. When meditators are monitored for their brain states, they can get into a synchronicity so that their brain waves are synchronized. Once their brain waves are synchronized, they take these meditators, put them into separate chambers which have no electromagnetic connection that you could radiate one thing to another there, flash a light into the eyes of one, and watch a brain change instantly in the brain state of the other one. There's no such thing as you're alone. You are never alone, because not only does God know what's going on, He's got a secret way of connecting you to everybody else and make sure that what you do has an impact on others. It's the power of thought, the power of consciousness. And this ability of thought to make these fundamental changes has finally come to the surface in science today as well. It used to be a matter of faith, now it's a matter of objective reality. Anybody here ever heard of psychoneuroimmunology? Psychoneuroimmunology is a new field. It's psycho is the mind, neuro is the nerves, the brain. So there's the non-physical mind, there's the physical brain. Immunology is the blood chemistry that prevents illness and promotes healing. It turns out that your state of mind affects your brain firing, which affects your hormonal function, which affects your immune system. People with bad thoughts have bad health. People with good thoughts have good health. The dean of Harvard's Mind-Body Institute, which is a pretty good school, says that 60 to 90% of doctor visits are mind-body issues. It means physical issues or mental issues, but even the physical issues that are under the control of the human mind. Go try and pass a drug past the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, without comparing it to the placebo effect, the mommy kiss it better effect, the fake pill effect. They've even shown that if a person has trouble walking because they had a knee injury, and they do a fake knee operation where they just cut, open up, then close it up, they don't do a thing to the knee, they get a huge percentage better because they got an operation. Does it sound very scientific to you to say that reality remains undefined until an observer comes along and makes a decision how to look at things? But that's the reality of what's going on. The quantum paradoxes are resolved specifically by observation. It turns out that you could make an experiment that can show whether something is a particle or something is a wave. If it's a particle, it can't be a wave. If it's a wave, it can't be a particle. So quantum theory comes along and says, guess what? Everything has a wave and particle nature. What they did was they took an electron gun and they fired the electron gun, they fired electrons at a barrier, and the barrier had two narrow slits. Now, if you set up the experiment that there are counters, like little telescopes, that one would watch this slit and the other would watch that slit, when you look at it this way, it will pass through one and only one hole and is a particle. If you put up a screen, it turns out that each electron goes through both slits, was a wave, and creates an interference pattern. So, depending on how you choose to observe it, it's either a wave, and always was, or it was a particle, and always was from the time it was emitted. At t equals 1, you fire it. Boom! After a certain number of microseconds, nanoseconds, it passes through the barrier. You can measure these times easily today. At t equals 3, okay guys, let's make the choice what we're going to put up. At t equals 4, you put up your apparatus, and then you measure it. It turns out that a decision that you made after it passed through the barrier will determine what it was when it went through the barrier. The whole history of the world comes into reality through the way you see it. We have a Mishnah in Sanhedrin. Bishvili nivra olam. For my sake was the world created. It sounds so egotistic. It sounds so unrealistic. The world was created for me. Oh, well, the world's created for you. Very good. It made sense on faith. We took it that, yes, the world is created so that I will do the right actions and thereby either come to the world to come or to bring Mashiach and bring godliness revealed in the world. And therefore I'm significant, like a little tiny significance. Here, what science is doing is saying this is not a tiny significance. Your individual significance is absolutely cosmic. It doesn't make very much good sense to you rationally. We have experiments to prove it. The lesson from science is basically this. The greater unity that everybody kind of senses, that's God. That inner spirituality that we all kind of feel, that's the soul. And the connectedness that we know from ecology and other things, that's our personal empowerment to help perfect the world and bring it to completion. If we walk around and think of ourselves as spiritual beings united with God, empowered to make a difference, we'll live our life in a more conscious way and be more ready for divine revelation when it happens.